Hi, friends. It's Diane here, and today we're talking about how social media fuels loneliness and disconnection. I spent the last weekend, actually, we're closing out on a weekend that I've been basically offline. Only checked into Facebook, I think, once only because people wanted to know I was safe when I was traveling. And I realized that my entire system feels differently. And I know we talk about taking breaks and from social media and doing all these things, but I really think that it's important to talk about how the the illusion of connection on social media breeds even more loneliness, especially in highly sensitive, gifted people, or even intensely sensitive, gifted people who have an empathic connection. Because see, loneliness is a disconnection from others, but I also see it as a disconnection from oneself, as like the spiritual plug within us gets unplugged, and we're not even connected to ourselves when we're distracted on a screen. And so we might think it's because we're disconnected from other people, which we are. But for me, the cause is we are disconnected from ourselves and therefore cannot connect to others. So for me, the issue of loneliness and social media have a deep connection, and I see it all the time. So I'm relaxing here in my home and thought I would record this episode in a more casual way. I have my coffee in my favorite mug, and because I think it's so important. Because right now I'm very connected to myself. I'm not distracted by social media because it gives us an illusion. Texting, I include in this, by the way, unless you're just giving notes on a time to meet or something very quickly, that's one thing. But when people say, well, I talked to so and so over hours, and then a friend of mine say that to me, and I go, you talked to them? They go, well, we texted. Well, texting back and forth with somebody for a long time and speaking with them or seeing them in person, those are all very different kinds of communication, light up different parts of our brain and connect with us differently. So when you live in the illusional world of social media is a connection, you take very big risks with your mental health, with your self-perception, your self-esteem, with your understanding of the world. You take very big risks along with constant yearning, constant pining, and a sense of being alone or lonely. Like gifted people often feel alone in the world because nobody gets them. Why? That's why this podcast is called Someone Gets Me, right? But also, we can create a perception that our life is rotten and everybody's life is great because we already know that people are either awfulizing things and putting all the stuff up or putting all the good stuff up, but there's not a real authentic range of what's really happening in someone's life that's happening on social media. It's not possible. So let's think for a moment about our mental health as multi-potentialite or gifted people or people who are really sensitive. Our mental health is critical for our physical health, our spiritual health, our social health. Our mental health is pivotal in all of these things. And I see, sadly, so many people thinking about their mental health as like an afterthought. We're going to deal with our mental health when we're sick or depressed or suicidal or so rageful, angry, we're hurting others. For me, because I've been in the mental health field now for over 4 decades, mental health is about our daily ability to mentally do and create and be all that we're meant to be. Our physical health means our physical body can do what it is we would like it to do in our daily life. We don't have to be a triathlete in order to be physically healthy because there are some people out there who look thin. We call them thin fats, I think, because what they are is they look good on the outside, but they're not really healthy because they're either eating junk or they're not exercising, whatever it is. There's so many different nuances here. But your mental health is required for your overall health. Mental health requires connection to others of the same species. That means in-person connection. So COVID did a a big disservice to a lot of people, especially young people who are still learning how to connect to people, right? But there's also been other things that have created that disservice. Violence of all different kinds in different communities and different sectors. That creates a disconnection. Prejudice and judgment creates disconnection. I'm a woman and I get judged a lot. I was told just the other day that women can't be spiritual beings. Well, I don't know how that could be, but I was judged by a man that I am unable to connect spiritually. Now, I know that that's not true, but that person threw a wall up because they had a strong belief that women don't belong. It's not true. So they are living in an echo chamber in order to create their own beliefs. So there's all different kinds of things, all different kinds of things. I've had people say, "Oh, you have lots of friends," and I do. And they go, "Well, that must be easy for you." I go, "Actually, it takes a lot of work." There's some of my friendships and I'm the one who does a lot of the calling and connecting, and others where they call me, and then others where it's balanced, and they all are very valuable. But it takes investment. It takes being willing to ride the ups and downs. It takes being willing to tell the truth if somebody hurt your feelings, or make amends if you hurt someone else's feelings, even if it was inadvertent. So having social relationships helps us not feel so lonely. But for me, the bigger relationship is the one with ourselves, which then also is the one with the divine, or wherever the higher idea of the world is. But that self, that connection to who you are, why you're sucking air on planet Earth, what is your purpose, like on a deep level, not just what you do for work, but what's your purpose? For me, my purpose is twofold: education, educating me and others, and inspiration, inspiring me and others. And so in all my work, I'm inspiring people and uplifting people in ways that maybe they've never felt before. That's my calling. That's what's deep within my heart. So when I'm doing those things, I am on point and I don't feel any loneliness because I'm connected to another person in a meaningful, powerful way. Social media alone will never be able to give you that. So when people say all their friends are on their phone, basically, they're missing a vital part of connection that our human brain requires. Mammals' brains require to be connected to others of the same species. We build mirror cells. When we mirror others of the same species when we're together, our brains harmonize, they co-regulate. So like if when you were young, the big people who were raising you, if they were anxious a lot and everything, you're going to co-regulate anxiety until you can entrain your brain to something differently. There's so many factors here. And social media creates a break, creates a block and a break to these levels of deep connection that allow a human being to thrive and be happy and feel connected and included. And so it's important, especially if you have children or they're young people, that they are not always living on an electronic device. Now, there's lots of research that shows that kids who are in front of screens all the time lose a whole, I think it was 10% of, or 10 IQ points, not 10%, 10 IQ points. That's a lot, right? And so we want to teach ourselves and our children critical thinking, how to think through something. Just because you see something on the internet doesn't make it true. Just because you read something doesn't make it true. Just because you hear something or see a video about it doesn't make it true. What makes it true is your critical thinking, is your researching, is your understanding. It's your way of investigating how whatever it is you're looking at resonates with you. How does it land on you? That's what makes it true. So how do we do that? We do that by learning how to connect with ourselves and then connect with others. And social media gets in the way of that. When I get caught up in the doom scrolling of just getting on my phone, mostly when my gifted, overexcitable brain just really needs a break, it's a great distraction. But if I let it go on too long, it becomes a drug. And if I let it keep going, it becomes very difficult to stop. Now I'm in trouble because now my mental health will start going down and I'll be feeling less and less connected and more maybe anxious or depressed or alone or lonely, all because of picking up the potential cycle that becomes the neurological drug coming through that screen. So it's important that we find ways to regulate and to be connected to ourselves and to release the compulsion to jump on social media all the time. Another issue here that I see a lot with social media and loneliness is quality of and quantity of relationships, right? I have 5,000 followers. I have this, I have that. Only 2 people liked that post. Well, what? You are judging your value and your connection to others by whether somebody else push a button wherever they are, whatever they're doing? Really? That's not going to help your mental health. What's going to keep you mentally healthy and spiritually healthy is investing in developing relationships that matter to you. And interestingly, whenever I do post something on social media, like I did once over the weekend, the people closest to me, they were the ones who commented. The other people never even noticed it or didn't do anything with it. So if I was resting only on who liked it on social media, I would be feeling dejected and alone and lonely and upset and like nobody cares. And that's not true. It would be a falsehood I would be telling myself. So I think it really matters that we're aware that there's a quality and quantity. Now, to invest in quality relationships takes an investment, which means you have to do your part and they have to do their part. And it's a mutual understanding depending on the different level of connection, right? So, what are you doing to develop connections? What are you doing? Like I see people going to these speed networking events, it cracks me up. And you're going to meet people really fast with the idea that you're going to follow up. Well, I've been to lots of those, and I can tell you I have followed up a handful of times at the most. And no one has ever followed up with me after one of those events, not one time. So that gives the illusion of connection, but it's not connection if there's not a follow up, if there's not the building of some sort of connection. Now, I think the issue here happens in this culture a lot when people have undisclosed motives or ulterior motives, and they're only networking or only trying to connect in order to get something from you. I see that on my social media, on LinkedIn all the time. People connect with me and they then very within minutes, it's probably all AI generated, is a sales pitch or a pitch to be on this podcast. And then when I say, "What's your favorite episode?" and I never hear from them again, it tells me that there is no real connection. They just wanted to use me for their benefit. Now, I don't mind having people on the show if it's going to benefit them. And let's have a little bit of a relationship first so we can see how that benefit might work. But if every time somebody tries to connect with you, all they have in their back of their mind is I want something. What can I get? Then pretty soon it's a little bit more difficult to connect with people. I just got a connection with somebody from LinkedIn yesterday, and the little message that he put in is, "Don't worry, I'm not trying to sell you anything. We have a lot of mutual friends academically, and I would like to connect with you." Because almost everybody has an ulterior motive and they're trying to sell things, or they're trying to influence, or they're trying to whatever instead of just how can I serve? So if you want to build authentic connections, then your mindset is service. What can I do for the other person? Whether it's a smile or be nice or a kind review. What can you do for the other person? An introduction. There's all kinds of things you can do for other people. So if you want quality relationships, you develop a service mindset where you're serving other people. And the question always is, what can I do for you? How can I serve you? And sometimes you ask it directly, and sometimes you listen in between the lines, and then you take the ability and the time to do something kind or generous. I did a social media review for somebody who did some work for me around my house, and they did a great job. But more importantly, they were good people. And I got a thank you card because they were happy, I guess, and maybe even a little bit stunned that I did it because I knew that it would matter to them. So I did it as an act of service, not as an obligation. So, what are you doing to serve the people that come into your life so it draws in those good connections, those quality connections? It's not about numbers, it's about quality. If you want to feel less lonely. Now, if loneliness is something that you're striving for, go get a bunch of superficial things and nobody will ever really connect to you and it'll be an illusion, right? Like I have all these numbers, but I still don't feel good. I have all this stuff out here, but it's not fulfilling. It's not fulfilling because you're not connected with yourself. And the way we connect with ourselves is we seek opportunities to give of ourselves, whether it's our time, our talent, our treasure, or something, a care, a hug, a nice email, something. So pay attention to those things. And then we also want to understand that if we're on social media a lot, that there's echo chambers, right? You know what an echo chamber is? That's when you keep getting fed information that aligns with what that social media platform thinks are your beliefs. And so you keep getting all of the things that feed into and support your belief system. So you never have the opportunity to develop really good critical thinking. Now, when I was younger, I thought critical thinking meant you criticize things. That's not true. I had the wrong definition when I was younger. And and then I found out differently. That's where being open-minded pays off, right? Because when I learned it, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Now that was back in like junior high school. But critical thinking is when we look at something and say, is it true? How do we know? How does it land on me? I see a lot of political ads and different kinds of ads all over the time. And I'm always saying, how's it landing on my heart? And if it doesn't land on my heart in kind of a yummy, nice way, then I'm very careful to decide how much I want to believe whatever it is. Because we know our intuition, our soul, our spirit, our inner self knows the truth. And so people who are angry and pushy and blaming and cutting other people down and harming other people with their words or their thoughts or their actions, those people are so disconnected from themselves and so full of shame and misery in there that they are spewing it on others. That is a raw, deep sense of loneliness and disconnection. That's a place I hope with every cell in my being that you never have to go to. It is really dark. Now, the good news is you can get out of it, but most people become addicted to that blaming, dark, controlling way of being. And that's the opposite of the goal of being a connected, vibrant, vital human being. It's the opposite. So we want to really pay attention that social media feeds it. I mean, I even notice it sometimes when I'll be scrolling and then something will pop up that's not in alignment with me. And I have many people in my world who don't align with the way I see things. They also have not been in the trenches of saving human life from the crazy forms of addiction and mental illness that I have lived through either. So they don't have the connection, they don't have the sensitivity or the understanding on some of these matters that I have. Just like I don't have some of the understanding on matters that are important to them. There's no right or wrong, it's awareness, right? So I have very divergent views from a lot of people around me. And so sometimes one of them will put something up and I will feel it. I go, that's awful. And so that's my opportunity to take a breath and discern, is that me just jumping because it doesn't align with me? Or do I really need to look at it and say, huh, well, maybe there's some truth in it, or maybe not? Or how can I use that for the benefit of myself and others? And sometimes it's outright just offensive and I move on. But there's always that moment, right? There's always that moment because I'm sure that some of my care and love for other human beings is not well received with people who don't care about others on the level that I do. It's the way it is, right? I have friends of mine that that rescue pets and animals all over the place, dogs and turtles and cats and whatever. I have many friends actually. And I hear them get judged by others in our social group that they're just going overboard. Well, I don't think they are at all going overboard. In fact, I respect greatly the work they do, and they do it on their own. It's not like their vocation. They do it because they care about those beings. And I have great respect for that. And so when I hear somebody else judge that, I say something, because if somebody's following their heart and they're taking care of animals that can't take care of themselves, that's noble. I take care of humans that have a hard time taking care of themselves. For many years of my career, it was noble. People judged me, but I knew that those people needed somebody in their life. Now, today I do a lot different work, but what I'm doing is helping people who are multi potentialite, neurodiverse people bring their voice forward in a meaningful, inspiring way. So not only are they connected, to themselves and others, but they can be that beneficial, positive influence in the world that they want to be. So it's a different level of using your voice and being heard and standing in your authority because these people have the ability. They just need a little push and a little bit of polishing to get it to come through in a way that's meaningful to them. It matters that we pay attention to these things, that we come out of the echo chamber of only listening to and watching and engaging with things we agree with without critical thinking, without learning how to discern what's true and right and good for ourselves and others. So if you're in a family system or a work team or you're a CEO, right? Or you're running a company, it matters. There's a lot of people that you affect. I have worked for, in the past, many different people who were not great bosses, who didn't really care about their people. They cared about their selfish gain, or they played the game to get you to do what they wanted you to do, and then they turned around and stung you like a scorpion. Or another boss I had a long time ago used to walk through the office just raging and screaming at everybody. He was an angry, rageful person spewing it on all the employees, and then they were afraid to do anything. So the work went down because they were in fear all the time, which then made him madder, right? It did create a cycle, but the whole cycle started because he was disconnected from himself and he was acting in a way that promoted loneliness. So it's our responsibility to get ourselves off social media enough to stay connected to ourselves. So ways we do that can be to set boundaries, get off the screens. And it might be hard at first, right? Or say, I'm only going to look at social media things at certain times of the day. If you're an entrepreneur or a small business person and you have to do social media to keep your business going, which unfortunately in a lot of cases is true, hire someone to help you with it. Or do kind of some of the things I do. I have people that help me, but I also, when I have things to put up or things to do, I'll do it in a batch. I'll schedule things so that I don't have to be there every day all the time. Yeah. There's ways to do it. There's ways to set the boundaries. And so you want to do that, whatever that is. Make sense? Yummy. This is the best coffee ever. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to focus on in person relationships. So, what are you doing to engage with another human being in person? Like I have a person I work with that I have been working with for over a year, all on Zoom, lives out of state. And we had a great connection. But then recently I traveled to the state where she lives and we got to meet in person. And it completely changed things for the better because we got to smile and look at each other and have a conversation that was meaningful about life in general. It wasn't necessarily work or a session in that manner, but it was developing the depth of the connection. So that next time we're on Zoom or next time we're on the phone, our brains, our bodies, our spirits will light up with that memory of that connection. So, what are you doing to develop in person connections? And if you're pushing back on me saying that, and you're going, well, I already have enough connections and texting and the phone and all that is fine, I invite you to look within yourself at your level of your own connection. And I ask you, what are you running from? Because when we run from our own connection to ourselves, we're running from some kind of pain or some kind of fear. And that is running our life. And we're making excuses for why we're not doing the things that we know are good for us. And we all are prone to it. Every person's prone to it. No one's perfect. It's about being honest and making decisions about how we want to move forward. That is where it's at. Make sense? And the last thing I want to pay attention to is we want to add activities into our life that have engagement in them. So there's all kinds of things. There's meetup groups. There's different things with different organizations you can belong to or go to. Or sometimes I'll just go to like a restaurant or something and sit down and just talk to whoever's around me. Now I'm 100% introverted. That is a little tricky to do, but sometimes it's kind of fun to stretch myself out of my own comfort zone and connect with some random person about some random thing. And over time, it's gotten easier and easier and actually fun. So there's all kinds of things. I was checking out of the hotel on my recent trip, and the lady checking me out, and I got in this long conversation. It took me like 30 minutes because we were talking about all kinds of things from her children, college education, the changes that she's noticed in her world, all those things. And it was a meaningful conversation with somebody I've never seen before. And taking those opportunities to connect with people deepens our own self connection and allows ourselves to be open to opportunity and connection with others. Learned a lot from her about things that are happening in that specific area of the country where I was. And I'm serving on the board of a university in that same town. Some of the things that she shared are salient to that board. She didn't know it, but because I engaged with her and we had a conversation, she started sharing things that I wouldn't have heard otherwise that have meaning to the service work I'm doing in another area of my life. We just never know when we're connected within and we allow someone to just share in our world. How can I serve you? By listening to what they say and listening to what they don't say can change everything for the better. So I invite you, friends, to pay attention to how social media creates loneliness in your life, how it creates a yearning and a pining for things that just maybe don't serve you in your highest good. I invite you to set boundaries and develop human brain to brain interactions so your mirror cells can activate and your mind can be opened. Practice critical thinking. Pay attention. The world is full of sham. The world is full of manipulation, lies, deceit. It's our job as individual human beings to pay attention to what is true, what is right, and what is good, and what is beneficial for all beings. All beings. What's the highest good of all concerned? So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you ever want to connect with me, please do through my link to do a get to know you call, or you can always email me or put a note in the comments and I will read them. So until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, remember to keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you are a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there in this world and let your light shine. And remember, connect in person. Social media is highly overrated and it's controlling you. So set yourself free. Go connect with someone today.